Hey everyone, and welcome. We've got a really interesting deep dive ahead of us today, all about explainable AI or XAI. And as a learner like you, I'm always so fascinated by how AI is making decisions, especially now that it seems like AI is everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because this idea of explainability, it's not even really new. One of the sources we're looking at actually starts off with a quote from Plato, a good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. It's pretty amazing to think about that. Even way back then, they understood that just having data wasn't enough. You need to understand what's really going on.
Wow, Plato and AI. Now that's a combination I never expected.
Yeah.
So so how do we actually bridge that gap? How do we move from just numbers to real understanding,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about AI?
Well, one of the sources actually gives a really good example of this. They talk about ice cream sales and shark attacks. And, both of those things, they tend to go up in the summer, right? But that doesn't mean that one causes the other.
Right, it just means it's hot out.
Exactly. The real underlying factor is the warmer weather. And the point is, without that context, without understanding that why, you might end up making some pretty crazy assumptions.
Okay, so that's a great analogy, but
Hmm.
but how does this apply to AI? I mean, could it fall into the same trap? Just seeing a correlation and making a wrong decision.
Absolutely. And that's where this idea of the black box problem comes in. A lot of AI models, especially the really complex ones, they're kind of like these mysterious black boxes. We put data in, we get an answer out, but we don't really know what's happening inside.
Okay, so it's like the AI is making a decision, but we have no clue why. That's a little unnerving.
Yeah, it definitely raises some concerns. And
Mm.
and the sources actually have some pretty compelling examples of why it's so important to understand that why behind an AI's decision. One that really stood out to me was this case where they trained an AI model to tell the difference between pictures of huskies and wolves. Sounds pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, I mean, how hard could that be? They look totally different.
Well, what they found is that the AI was actually getting tricked by the background. So if there was a husky in a picture, but it was like a snowy background, the AI would often misclassify it as a wolf. Basically, it had learned to associate snow with wolves. Instead of like actually looking at the animal's features, it was taking this shortcut that led to some pretty inaccurate results.
Wow, so the AI learned a bad pattern from the data. It's like that example they talk about with water birds and land birds.
Yeah.
The AI had only ever seen pictures of water birds in the water and land birds, well, on land.
Hmm.
So it got totally confused when it saw a picture that didn't fit that pattern.
Exactly. And that highlights this huge issue of bias in AI systems. Even seemingly harmless patterns in the training data can end up causing major problems in how the AI makes decisions.
So how do we fix this?
Hmm.
The sources talked about things like transparency, interpretability, and explainability, but those sound so technical. Can you break it down for us, in plain English?
Sure. Think of it this way. Transparency is like having a really detailed instruction manual for how the AI was built. Documenting everything, the model's architecture, the data that was used to train it, the decisions that were made during development. It's all about being open about the AI's ingredients and its recipe, so to speak.
Okay, so transparency is about understanding where the AI came from. What about interpretability? How's that different?
Interpretability is more about making the model itself understandable. Like imagine a decision tree, where you can visually follow the logic from the input to the output. That's an interpretable model. You can actually see each step, each decision that the AI is making.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm.
So transparency is about the process and interpretability is about the model itself.
Ooh.
So where does explainability fit into all of this?
Explainability is what we need when we're dealing with models that aren't inherently interpretable, like those really complex deep learning models we talked about earlier. It's about developing techniques to understand the AI's decisions, even after it's already been trained.
So it's like we're trying to add a layer of understanding after the fact. But how do we actually do that? What kind of tools do we have for explainability?
Well, there are a bunch of different techniques. They kind of all have their own approach. One that the source material mentioned is called SAP, which stands for Shapley Additive Explanations. And it's a method that's used to understand how much each feature contributes to a specific prediction.
Okay, can you give us an example of how that would work? Like in the real world?
Sure. Let's say you're applying for a loan and there's an AI system that's helping to decide whether or not to approve your application. SHAP could help us understand how much weight the AI is putting on different factors, like your credit history, your income, your employment status.
Okay, so it's like we're breaking down the AI's thought process and seeing which factors are the most important in its decision.
Exactly. SHAP gives us a way to quantify the importance of each factor, so it gives us some insight into the why behind the AI's prediction.
That's super interesting. So SHAP is one tool. What are some others?
Another one that they talked about is saliency maps. And these are a way to visually understand which parts of the input data the AI is really focusing on. They're used a lot in image recognition. So for example, if we have an AI that's, classifying pictures of cats and dogs, a saliency map might highlight the areas of the image that the AI found most distinctive, like the cat's ears or the dog's snout, for instance.
So it's kind of like seeing what the AI is paying attention to, almost like we're peeking into its mind's eye.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Saliency maps give us this visual representation of the AI's focus, and that can actually help us uncover potential biases or flaws in its reasoning.
This is all really fascinating. It seems like we have a pretty diverse toolkit for understanding AI, from transparency techniques to methods for interpreting and explaining complex models. But there's another term that keeps coming up, and that's AI alignment. How does that fit into all of this?
AI alignment is super important, especially as AI systems get more and more sophisticated. It's about making sure that the AI's goals and its actions are actually in line with human values and intentions. We don't want AI systems going rogue and making decisions that could have unintended, potentially harmful consequences.
Right. That sounds a bit like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound like fiction, but it's a very real concern, and explainability plays a key role in addressing that concern. Because by understanding how an AI is making decisions, we can, better ensure that it's not deviating from its intended purpose or developing biases that conflict with our values.
I see, I see. So I think we're starting to get a grasp on why explainable AI is so important. It's not just about, technical understanding. It's about building trust, making sure AI is fair, and making sure it acts in a way that aligns with human values.
Exactly. It's about creating AI systems that are not just intelligent, but also responsible and ethical.
Awesome. Well, so far we've really focused on the why and the how of explainable AI. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the real-world implications. For our listener, why should they care about all of this? How is XAI affecting our lives in a tangible way?
That's a great question. And the source material actually digs into some of the practical applications of XAI, and the implications are huge. They touch on so many different areas like healthcare, finance, even criminal justice.
Wow, that's quite a range. Can you give us some specific examples of how XAI is being used in those fields?
Of course. Let's start with healthcare. Imagine an AI system that's helping doctors diagnose diseases. Now, AI can be incredibly accurate, but doctors need to understand why the AI is making a particular recommendation before they're going to trust it and act on it, right?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Blindly following an AI's output without understanding the reasoning could be, well, a bit risky, especially when it comes to someone's health.
Exactly. So XAI can help to bridge that gap by giving us insights into the AI's decision-making process. For example, let's say the AI flags a potential tumor in a medical scan. It could actually highlight the specific features that it's focusing on, giving the doctor a better understanding why it's making that assessment.
So the AI is not just giving an answer, it's also showing its work.
Exactly. And that allows the doctor to really scrutinize the AI's logic and gain confidence in its assessment.
So it's creating more of a partnership between the doctor and the AI.
Exactly. And that can lead to earlier diagnoses, more personalized treatments, and ultimately, better outcomes for patients.
Okay, so healthcare is one area where XAI is really making a difference. What about finance? How is XAI impacting decisions in areas like, loan applications or credit scoring?
Well, the use of AI in finance is becoming incredibly common. But these decisions, they have such a huge impact on people's lives. It's crucial to make sure that they're fair and unbiased. We don't want AI systems, perpetuating existing inequalities or discriminating against certain groups of people.
That's a really important point. We need to make sure that AI is used to promote fairness, not, make things worse.
Right. And that's where XAI comes in. By making the decision-making process of these algorithms transparent, we can actually identify and mitigate any biases that might be hidden within them. So XAI allows us to hold these systems accountable and make sure that everyone is treated fairly, regardless of their background.
Okay, so transparency and accountability are key, and XAI can help us achieve that.
Absolutely. And beyond fairness, XAI can also help to build trust in these systems. When people understand how decisions are being made, they're more likely to have confidence in the system, even if the outcome isn't what they were hoping for.
That's a really good point. Transparency is essential for building trust,
Mm.
and that's crucial for any system that has such a big impact on people's lives and their finances.
You got it. Now, you also mentioned criminal justice, which is another area where the stakes are incredibly high. We've seen cases where people have been wrongly accused or arrested due to flaws in AI systems, so it's clear that we need to be extremely careful in this domain.
Absolutely. So how is XAI being used in criminal justice?
Well, one example is facial recognition technology, which can be a valuable tool for law enforcement. But there have been concerns about bias leading to wrongful accusations. So XAI can help to mitigate that risk by making the facial recognition process more transparent. By understanding how the AI is making its identifications, we can identify any biases and take steps to correct them, ensuring that these systems are used responsibly and don't become tools of oppression.
It sounds like XAI can play a crucial role in preventing injustice and making sure that AI is used to enhance justice, not undermine it.
Precisely. It's about harnessing the power of AI while still upholding those ethical principles and protecting individual rights.
It's incredible to see how XAI is making a difference in so many areas. It's not just about, understanding the technology. It's about using that technology to create a fairer, more equitable, and more trustworthy world.
I couldn't agree more. Ultimately, it's about using AI to empower humans to solve problems and to create a better future for everyone.
That's a great way to put it. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into explainable AI, exploring its importance, its methods, and how it's being used in the real world.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
That's right. In the next part, we'll dive even deeper into the specific techniques that are being used to achieve explainable AI, and we'll see how those tools are being implemented in practice. Stay tuned for more.